Sally that girl in the kitchen. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sally that girl in the kitchen. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to make Rollitos de Berenjena, eggplant rolls. These are delicious thin layers of eggplant, and they are rolled around savory seasoned meat, and then they are cooked in the oven in sauce, and they are spectacular. This is one of the recipes that so many people have been asking me to do because it is also a very typical Sephardic-Turkish recipe, and I've had tons of requests for it. So I've decided now is the time. You are going to love this recipe. So let's not wait another second and let's get started. For today's recipe, you will need 1.5 pounds of lean ground beef, 1 small yellow onion, 2 cloves of garlic, 3 sprigs of fresh parsley, 2 tablespoons of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of salt, plus a few more pinches separate, some fresh ground black pepper to taste, 1/4 cup of uncooked rice, which is optional because these rollitos de berenjena can be made with or without the addition of rice, 2 large eggplants, plenty of extra virgin olive oil for drizzling, 1/2 cup of chicken broth, 1 1/4 cups of tomato sauce, 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, and 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. You will also need a cutting board and a knife, a large bowl and a spoon, some measuring spoons, some dry measuring cups, some wet measuring cups, a baking sheet, and a 9 by 13 Pyrex or similar baking dish. You will also need some aluminum foil, and I like to use an extra baking sheet as a surface to roll my rollitos de berenjena on. So now that we have all of our ingredients and tools together, let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is preheat your oven to 400 degrees and make sure you have a rack placed in the center of the oven. Then grab your cutting board and your knife and your 2 cloves of garlic, and you are going to peel them and mince them. Then set the garlic aside and bring over your onion and peel it and chop it into small pieces. Then grab your 3 sprigs of fresh parsley and remove the leaves from the stems, and then mince those leaves into small pieces. Set those leaves aside and discard the stems. Then bring over your eggplant. Now, if your eggplants are the same length, you will just slightly cut off a little piece of the bottom. But since I wasn't able to find 2 eggplants that were similar in length, I took off a little more because I do want my eggplants to be about the same length. And then of course, just chop off the top and then set the other eggplant aside for a moment so we can first work on one. Now, cutting off a small slice at the bottom gives us a stable way to cut our eggplant. So what I like to do is I take my knife and I cut off a thin first slice because I'm not going to be using that one because I don't want the peel running all the way down my slice. So that one I will just put aside. And don't worry, whatever pieces I cut off and I don't use, I will use after to make something yummy. I don't get rid of anything. I just put them in a Ziploc bag and put them into my refrigerator to later make something delicious. I could chop them up and cook them with some soy sauce and garlic, or I can add some egg and cheese and make a mini almodrote de berenjena. So definitely I will be using whatever scraps of eggplant that I cut off. So now I have a flat surface and I'm going to start cutting slices and making thin slices of eggplant with only the peel around the edge. The idea is to make many thin slices of eggplant so that they will be used to make our delicious rollitos. For the amount of filling that we will be preparing, we are going to require 12 slices of eggplant. So use the first eggplant and then create as many thin slices as you can. And then of course, you're gonna move on to your second eggplant and you're gonna repeat the same process. Look at how I cut that last slice, because what I try to do is to make sure that none of the slices have a complete cover of peel. I only want the peel running on the sides of the eggplant, not on the front or the back of these delicious slices. Now, of course, for my second eggplant, I'm not going to have to cut off so much because I already trimmed the other one so that they would be similar in length. So this one is perfect. So I'm just going to take off a very little bit from the bottom just to create that flat surface to help me stand my eggplant up and be able to slice it. And then of course I turn it around and I cut off the top. And then I proceed to remove that first slice so that I don't have that peel on my beautiful slice of eggplant. Just set it aside with the other pieces that I'm going to save for something else. And then proceed to slice your eggplant until you have 12 slices. Do you see how trimming that first eggplant helped me have slices that are similar in length? That's important because when you roll your eggplant, you want it to be able to cook at the same speed. You want all of your rollitos to cook evenly, so you do want your eggplant to be similar in length. So then keep cutting slices until you've created 12 slices of eggplant, and then whatever you have left, set aside with your scraps for later. Now that you have your 12 slices, it's time to grab your baking sheet. And what you're going to want to do is drizzle your sheet with some olive oil, because traditionally this recipe was made with fried eggplant, but in order to make it just a little healthier and still equally delicious, what I like to do is I like to use olive oil, and I like to roast the eggplant for a few minutes in the oven, and it really helps give it that delicious fried eggplant flavor, while at the same time softening up the eggplant enough that I'm able to roll it. Because if not, the eggplant roll would open and it would crack and it just would not create a roll. So notice how I use a slice of my eggplant to just help spread that olive oil around on the pan, because what I want to do is I really want to give my eggplant a coating of olive oil. I just like to take the eggplant and just turn it over a few times and just coat it nicely with olive oil, because I do want them to have a nice coating of oil, because like I said, we're trying to get that fried eggplant feel to it and that delicious flavor. And of course the olive oil will give an incredible flavor to this dish. So just drizzle the tray as needed and then continue to add slices of eggplant. You do want to make sure that both sides of your eggplant have absorbed a bit of the oil. So as I said, just add more oil as you add more slices of eggplant, and just make sure that they all get some love from that delicious extra virgin olive oil. Now, don't worry at all if you have to have your eggplant slices overlap a little bit in order to get them all on your tray. That's perfectly fine. So once you've drizzled them all and they all have a touch of that yummy extra virgin olive oil, then it's time to season your eggplant. So what you want to do is grab some salt, and you're just going to sprinkle a little bit of salt on each side of your eggplant. So you do one side first. Then you grab your pepper grinder and you're going to season this side of your eggplant with a little bit of fresh ground black pepper. Now, of course, if you don't have a pepper grinder, then you can just use a very little pinch of ground black pepper instead. Now, once you've seasoned one side of your eggplant, then you just want to take each slice and turn them over so that you can season the other side of the eggplant, because you want to make sure that both sides of your eggplant have some seasoning on it. So just go through the whole tray and flip your pieces around so that you can repeat the same process on the other side of the eggplant. Now, once you've seasoned the second side of your eggplant, it's time to put this tray into the oven. We are going to bake them, or roast them really, because they're going to be at 400 degrees for 10 minutes. So this will be perfect for the eggplant to absorb some of that delicious olive oil and for it to soften enough for us to be able to roll it. Now, while our eggplant is in the oven is a perfect time to work on our filling. So put your ground beef into your large bowl and then add your chopped onions, your minced garlic, and that chopped fresh parsley. And we are going to create this delicious mixture that's going to go inside of our rollitos de berenjena. So once you have all of that in, then it's time to season our mixture. So you're going to add your onion powder, your garlic powder, your cumin or cumin, depends on how you like to pronounce it, your paprika. Now this is not spicy paprika, it's just regular paprika. And your salt. And some fresh ground black pepper, just like before. If you don't have a grinder, then you can just add a few pinches of ground black pepper. And then now I'm going to add my rice. You're going to notice I use uncooked rice. It is going to cook in the oven. The steam that is created by covering this dish as it bakes, and of course with that moisture from the delicious sauce and those onions and that meat, that moisture and the steam is enough to cook the rice as your rollitos bake. Of course, you can omit the rice if you'd rather not use it. It is equally delicious without it. So at this point, my timer has gone off and my eggplant is ready, and I've pulled it out of the oven, and just set it aside and let it cool a bit while you continue to bring together your filling. So now that you've added all those yummy ingredients into the meat, then just grab a spoon and then start to bring all of the ingredients together. The idea is to incorporate all of those yummy ingredients and those delicious spices into the meat so that they are well distributed throughout. So as usual, I like to start with a spoon and just break up any big chunks of meat and bring everything together. And then of course, there is nothing like mixing with your hands to really bring those ingredients together. So once you've broken up the pieces and you've kind of help those ingredients spread throughout, then you are going to switch to your hands to finish mixing the filling. Those spices are already smelling incredible, and we haven't even filled our eggplant or baked it yet. This is going to be really delicious. So now I've set that bowl aside and I've gone to wash my hands, and I've brought over my rectangular Pyrex or baking dish and my extra virgin olive oil. And I'm going to give a drizzle of olive oil to this pan because it is going to be part of that sauce that I create for these rollitos. And of course, we want it to be reminiscent of a fried eggplant roll. So the olive oil plays a big part in this recipe. And then of course we add our delicious tomato sauce. And then we are going to add our chicken broth. Now, this is very traditional Sephardic-Turkish. The combination of tomato and chicken broth is used in many, many Sephardic-Turkish recipes. And I like to add just a little bit of sugar whenever I'm creating any recipe that involves tomato sauce to just control that acidity. And then finally, I add about a tablespoon of tomato paste because the tomato paste will really bring out that delicious tomato flavor. It really just adds an extra special depth of flavor to our dish. And then of course, season with just a pinch or two of some salt. And then again, either some freshly ground black pepper or just a little pinch of ground black pepper. Now, once we've seasoned our sauce, grab a spoon, and I like to use the back of the spoon to just mix that tomato paste and that chicken broth and olive oil into our tomato sauce to just make a delicious base for these rollitos de berenjena to cook in. So now set your baking dish aside and it's time to form our delicious eggplant rolls. So bring over a clean baking tray to work on, and then you are going to bring over a slice of your eggplant that has now had time to cool. You see how the slice is now pliable and you could just completely roll it without it tearing, and of course it stays rolled. That's perfect. That's what you're looking for. So now grab your bowl of filling and a spoon to help you, and grab some meat and fill your rollito de berenjena. I'm really good at just eyeballing how much meat I'm going to need or how much filling in order to make 12 rolls. But if you're not comfortable with eyeballing it, then of course you can separate your filling first into 12 portions. That's fine. And then just place it on your eggplant and roll it as shown. Look how easy that is. And you have that delicious filling running through that delicious eggplant. Amazing. And then you just add it to your yummy sauce and you're ready to make another one. Let me show you what it looks like again. Place a slice of eggplant onto your baking tray and you grab a portion of your meat filling, and then you just kind of bring it together almost like if you're making a oval meatball. And then once you have enough filling, you're going to bring it over to your eggplant and you are going to just roll your eggplant over the meat and onto itself. And then you place it seam side down into your sauce. That way the rollito de berenjena will stay together as it bakes. Now, how easy does that look? Those eggplants that were roasted for 10 minutes in the oven are just perfect. They're the perfect canvas for this delicious meat filling, and they roll up really easily because they're perfectly pliable. They don't crack as you roll them, and they are, of course, delicious with that yummy olive oil, and they're going into this incredible sauce that they're going to bake in. They are truly spectacular, and they're really not difficult to put together. Once you know what you're doing, they are very, very easy to make. Look at how delicious these look, and they're just so beautifully filled. They're perfect. So now just continue to repeat this process until you've created 12 different eggplant rolls or rollitos de berenjena, and then just place them side by side into the sauce. I line them up in rows, remembering of course to place the seam side down, and I'm able to make 2 rows of 5, and then I have 2 more that I place sideways in a 3rd row. Now use your spoon and then just take some of that delicious sauce. You've got that yummy tomato sauce that you created, and you're just going to spoon some of it over each of your rollitos de berenjena before we put them into the oven to bake, because we want them to absorb that delicious tomato sauce and olive oil and chicken broth. It's really going to make these rollitos very flavorful. So just go around with your spoon and spoon some sauce over each of your eggplant rolls. Now, once you've done that, you're going to grab some aluminum foil because you want to cover this pan well to place it in the oven to bake. Remember, we want that steam to make these nice and soft and to help cook that raw rice that we included. So just make sure to cover them real well with aluminum foil, and then we are going to be putting them into the oven. Carefully place your baking dish onto a center rack in your oven, and then set a 35-minute timer for them to begin to cook. After 35 minutes, you are going to want to carefully bring them out, and then be very careful because there's a lot of steam accumulated, and then take off the aluminum foil, and then just use your spoon to once again baste your rollitos de berenjena. You want to distribute that sauce over these rolls because you really just want them to be enveloped in that delicious tomato sauce. So just take your spoon and very carefully give them all a really good basting with that sauce. Now, once you've done so, you're going to very carefully put your foil paper back onto your baking dish because we are going to put these back into the oven. So do not forget, of course, your oven mitts because the tray is very, very hot. And you are going to put them back into the oven to continue baking. And you're going to set a second timer to let these finish cooking. This time, you're going to set your timer for 25 minutes to allow your rollitos de berenjena to finish cooking. Now, after the 25 minutes have passed, it's time to take your rollitos de berenjena out of the oven and then very carefully uncover them because now they are really, really hot and there is a lot of steam, but they are ready. So just uncover them, and then I like to give them one more basting with that delicious sauce while they're still hot. I just go around and I baste them all. Look at how bubbly that sauce is because it's very, very hot. And then I just give them all a nice basting with this tomato sauce before serving them because they are delicious and they are fragrant. They're going to be so good. Now look at how spectacular these look. They are so inviting with that delicious meat filling and that incredible savory tomato sauce. They remind me of my Sephardic-Turkish heritage because these are very, very typical Sephardic-Turkish and they are so good. I just cannot wait to try them. So as I often like to say, enough with the admiring. It's now time to try one of these. Wow, look at how incredible that looks. Really, that delicious filling with those warm spices and that yummy savory sauce. This is going to be delicious. You see how lovely they look and how they retain their shape while baking. Now, of course, I'm going to break into them. Look at that incredible filling with those onions and that little bit of rice and, of course, that delicious meat and spices. Wow, I can't wait to try it. That eggplant is so tender. Oh, this is going to be delicious. Wow, it's perfect. It is so good. The rice is perfectly cooked. The meat is fragrant and it's savory and that eggplant is tender. Ooh, I can't wait to take another bite. It is so good. Look at that delicious eggplant with just a touch of the peel, and look at that center with that perfectly cooked rice and that yummy sauce. You're really gonna love this. This is so good. Oh, I'm making a mess. Let's try that again. Wow, I want to get every last bit because it is so delicious. I don't want to miss a single piece. So good. Wow, amazing. There aren't enough words to describe how good this is. You are going to love it. It's going to become a staple in your kitchen. Look at how delicious that looks. Incredible. Wow, so savory, so delicious, so fragrant. Those warm spices, that delicious eggplant, the tomato sauce with the broth, incredible. The olive oil, all of it. It just comes together and it is magical. So how incredible does this look? This is a recipe that is really not that difficult to put together, but is going to impress everyone. It'll become a staple in your kitchen because it is savory and delicious, and it almost feels somewhat exotic because you've got that eggplant rolled up with that meat, and it just feels like an extra special recipe, which it is. You are going to love it. Trust me. No, better yet, don't trust me. You're gonna have to try to make this recipe yourself. And if you've enjoyed today's recipe, don't forget to like it, comment on it, share it, but most importantly, subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on a single amazing, delicious, savory, sweet, all kinds, international recipe that I have planned for you. See you next time. Sally, that girl in the kitchen.